Welcome everyone to Next Chapter Career Literacy for Library Staff. Today we're doing Right on Track, where we will talk about resumes, cover letters, and other application documents. Apologies for the technical difficulties. This session is sponsored by Metronet, which is one of 7 state-funded multi-type library systems that exist in Minnesota. It's a pretty unique situation here. And if you do not know your multi-type, you really should. I'm Stephanie Slaughter. I'm the programming librarian here at Metronet. And before that, I worked in public libraries, both urban and suburban. And I'm going to pass it off to Ann Walker-Smalley.
Hello, I'm Ann Walker-Smalley, and I'm the director of Metronet, and I've been here for quite a while. Prior to that, I was working as a library consultant with including Metronet, with other library systems in Minnesota on various grant-funded projects. And I moved to Minnesota from the East Coast, where I had been working in special libraries and consulting with organizations like the Library of Congress. But I also took a 10-year sabbatical. So I re-entered the library world after a break. It was kind of like Rip Van Winkle, because that was when the internet became so important in libraries. So this kind of job series would have really been helpful to me at that time. So we hope it's helpful to you as well. And to make it even more helpful, I'm going to introduce our consultant who's been working with this on is Kelsey Baum, who also worked with us as our HR person when we were hiring Stephanie as the programming librarian. And over that year or so, Kelsey and I developed a great working relationship. And when we had this idea, she was the first person we thought of. So we really appreciate Kelsey's participation, and I'll let her tell you all her qualifications for providing this kind of information to people.
Hi,
Kelsey?
everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks, Anne. It is nice to see some familiar faces and familiar names. Thanks for coming back. If you're a repeat offender, a repeat attender, and for those that are new, welcome. We're happy to have you here. As Anne said, my name is Kelsey Bohm. I've been working in HR and talent for over 10 years, really specializing in building and scaling teams. And I've done that for a variety of companies, startups, consulting firms, as well as a global athletic and apparel and footwear brand. So because I've been building and scaling these teams as well as the HR function, my career actually a lot of what I have done is recruiting. I've done a lot of resume review, and actually started my career in recruiting in a staffing firm. Since then have built out the HR function, not only for companies in the US, but in China as well. And so I've seen a lot of things in a lot of places. Now I work as a fractional HR leader and senior HR consultant, partnering with small and growing businesses like Metronet to help build sustainable people-focused systems, policies so that they can grow, really empowering people managers to lead, making sure that they have like the cool toolkits, as well as the coaching they need to empower their people to do well as ensuring compliance and reducing risk. The really fun and exciting stuff that is part of it. I think it's important for everyone to know in every role, including HR, that we are all humans, right? And so you will see a photo of me in my blazer because I can do the professional headshot thing, as well as that is a picture of me holding an armful of Mexican jungle puppies as well. So I encourage you all to show up here and to your jobs as full people with multi facets, and embrace those as well. Anne and I have really bonded on talking about how librarians are matchmakers for resources, and I view HR similarly, helping people get what they need, facilitating important conversations, helping them discover and highlight their strengths and their roles so that they can really be successful in any role that they might be, whether that's a job, a library adjacent job, a customer service job, whatever that might be. So I really love that aspect of HR. I think what's good for people is good for business, and having a job affects your life, right? It affects how you show up in the world, how you are as a partner and a friend and a family member, and how you treat the cashier at the grocery store when you're stopping by for a quick thing to make dinner on the way home from work. And so part of the series is to really help people find that job that is the right fit for them because of how important that they are in people's lives. So now that I've spent a little too much time talking about me, I want to get to know the group here. So we've done this every single week, and it's always fun. So if everyone could please write in the chat your name, your current role and location, and then I always like to have a little bit of fun at work, and so we're going to play a PG version of Kiss, Marry, and Kill, resume, cover letters, and LinkedIn profile. So if you had to choose one to kiss, spend a little bit of time with, one to marry, to spend a lot of time with, really commit, and then one to just completely get rid of and you never have to see it again, what would that be? And I'm going to give everyone a minute to put that in the chat. And I would really love to hear from both Stephanie and Anne, who they would kiss, who they would marry, and who they would kill.
Oh,
They didn't know I was going to do this.
no, we didn't. Well, I think I like my resume. It needs a lot of work because of it's out of date, but I like what it says about me and how to use it. And if I had to marry something, maybe that would be it. Kissing, cover letters. I don't mind writing cover letters. I think they're important. Um, and we'll talk some more about that. And then I'd kill my LinkedIn profile. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm, new to the game as far as LinkedIn profiles go. Um, so there you go.
Oh, isn't this fun? It's fun to and also looking in the chat, people are having different answers, and I think that that's really interesting. Stephanie, do you want to give your version?
Yeah, I would so I would also marry resume because even though I know I have work to do on mine, it is more constant and so I don't have to change it quite so much. And then I would kiss my LinkedIn profile because it's similar to a resume, right? And then I would kill cover letters because I do not like writing them.
Okay. I are you guys seeing this in the chat? A lot of people are killing LinkedIn, which I mean, maybe it was because of my session last week that they want to kill LinkedIn. And they went and looked up the activity section. I don't know. Um, I am going to be controversial here. I would marry LinkedIn because it can be a version of your resume, but there are pictures, there are links, there's more opportunity to be connected. Um, I would marry a resume because it's LinkedIn light. It's classic and helpful for a good reason. And I would kill a cover letter. As I as I said last week, and I'm going to say it again today, I have a love-hate relationship with those cover letters. So I I would do that. But it's fun to see everyone's answers in. Okay, Kayla would also kill the cover letter, so I'm not the only one here. Oh, okay, great. Um, Wonderful. Well, thank you for playing along. I always like I said, like to have a little bit of fun if we're gonna be at work and we're gonna talk about really serious, important things like resumes. Um, all right. So, for those of you who have come to this a series of career literacy, these sessions are designed to work like a series of a book, where each one should be, hopefully, is standalone good. There's something that you can take away from it. There will be reoccurring themes throughout, however, with the ability to continue to build off of each other with connection between them. So the first session that we did on 10:30, 2 Thursdays ago, was cataloging yourself, discovering your strengths and characteristics for career success. Last week, as we mentioned, we took a deep dive into LinkedIn to better understand how to use that, how to optimize that profile, as well as discussing public presence and how employers may or may not be using your personal social media during the hiring process. And as you know, today our theme is right on track, resumes and cover letters. I want to remind everyone, if it's a reminder, or let them know if they're new here, that this series really, again, is designed to be helpful. And we want it to be a springboard for meaningful conversation rather than a lecture, which is why we ask for introductions. We will ask for engagement throughout. If you are willing and able and feeling brave, turning on your camera is lovely. Again, helps create some of that community, but understand that that isn't the best situation for everyone, for whatever reason, and we can roll with that too. I want people to know that they can interrupt me at any time. Again, I want this to be helpful. I want it to be a conversation. So feel free to interrupt me, put something in the chat, whether that is questions, comments, concerns, jokes, or feedback for future sessions, what you'd like to see so that we can create new programming. All of that input is welcome and encouraged. And then I also want to say we'll be taking a break in December. So we have this week, we have next week, and then we'll be taking a break in December, and the series will resume in January. Okay, so this activity we did in session one when we were cataloging ourselves, which really can be the first step in a job search and often the most difficult. And so, what I challenged everyone to do was on a blank sheet of paper, blank sheet, digital or paper, create 4 sections: skills, experience, values and priorities, and personal characteristics, and then create minimum of 7 things under each section that help that reflect who you are and help articulate your own uniquely you, the things that are going to get you hired, because no one else has that unique combination. We come back to this slide and to this activity because you will hear me, just as you did last week, you'll hear me again this week talk about using this activity as a springboard and using the ideas here to help you in writing your resume, writing your cover letter, just like we used it last week to help with our LinkedIn profiles. Okay, so in taking a little bit of a reflection and discussing last week, because we do have some people here who did come last week, wondering how many people Googled yourself after last week's session to see what comes up. Anyone? Aaron did? Anyone else? Looks like Melissa did.
I did.
Anne did. Okay. Um, Did anything surprise you when you Googled yourself? Did you check your privacy settings and review your social media accounts, both personal and professional, beyond Googling yourself? Yes, no, maybe so. Um, did anyone delete anything after Googling themselves or reviewing their LinkedIn activity that we went through last week?
I
I
deleted
see I
all
see
my
some
LinkedIn
shaking heads.
activity.
Stephanie deleted all of it, hers from 9 years ago. Um, And just really want to challenge you after last week. I want you to be thinking about it. Does your online presence now, or does your online presence accurately represent who you are now in this phase of your life and in your career? Is anyone feeling brave enough to talk to us about what they found, if they changed anything, if they deleted anything, and if it represents who they are?
I hadn't Googled myself for a while. So I was kind of surprised how much is no longer there.
Mhm.
Back when Metronet and the other multi-types were doing a lot of joint activities like 23 things on a stick and some of those activities, there were a lot of photographs from who knows where that had been posted supporting that, and those were gone. It also surprised me that there was a picture of my mother there. which
Yeah.
shows how far-reaching Google is. It was the picture that accompanied her obituary. And obviously I was mentioned in the obituary, so, but I was surprised to see that. I didn't really delete anything. Um, I added some things to my LinkedIn.
Okay.
Jeanette wants to know, what if you don't have much of an online presence? Is that a red flag for some companies?
I don't think in general that is a red flag, Jeanette. Good question. As we did mention in last session, I think that's only potentially a red flag if you're applying for a job that does require a lot of visibility, or a social media manager position, something like that, where that is a key part of the role. But beyond that, from my perspective, the less there is, the less that could potentially get you in trouble, and the more that you can control the narrative when you are meeting people in person or virtually. So don't think it's a bad thing unless that is a specific or important to the role that you're applying for.
Kai says, and sometimes you find out that there's someone else with your name who is more famous than you.
Oh,
That
true.
too. It's always interesting to see what other Kelsey Bohms are up to. There aren't a lot of them, but there are a couple. So, okay. And then Melissa says, my privacy settings are always so locked down, so LinkedIn wasn't public at all, and I'm still not sure I made it public. Okay. Well, Melissa, if you want to make it public, we can take a look at that later together if you want someone to help you look at those things. Um, okay. So, thanks for changing the slide, Stephanie. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Has anyone ever heard this? Yes, no, maybe so. Okay. So resume is often your first opportunity to make a good impression, unless they have looked you up online, but usually the resume comes first. So make it count, right? We want to make those first impressions count. Recruiters and hiring managers will often make a judgment about your resume within less than, people say 6 seconds, but less than 10 seconds. And really, what they're looking for immediately is there enough to keep looking? In this day and age, with online applications, and LinkedIn's easy apply, it is more common than ever to be completely inundated with hundreds of applications. And so, with that, and again, the ease of technology to be able to apply to so many of them, it's really important that your resume is optimized, that you're presenting yourself in a way that you're proud of. And again, presenting it in a way that is getting people to continue to look at your resume for more than 6 seconds and know that you are potentially qualified and there's reason to continue the conversation. Okay, so resume, stand out, make it count. We are going to get into some resume specifics, but first, I want to talk about things that pertain to all resumes. So every single line on a resume is prime real estate. Use it wisely. Unnecessary line breaks or indents or spreading things into two lines when it could be one, is not necessary. So really make sure that you're using every single space that you can wisely. People often ask about, they talk about the one page rule, right? Is there a one page rule? Am I supposed to sum up 20 years of career experience in one page? No. Resumes should be as long as necessary to really capture and highlight your experience to showcase why you are qualified and the right person for a role, while also being as concise as possible. Even if you have 20 plus years of experience, I don't recommend going over maybe 4 pages absolute max. Um, but you don't have to distill everything into one page. If you are freshly out of school or earlier in your career and you don't have a lot of experience, there's also no reason to add unnecessary fluff to fill up more than one page. So is one page absolutely acceptable? Yes. Do you need to fit it all into one page? Definitely not. Another thing that's important to know and to talk about is to spell things out completely first and then follow up with an acronym, maybe in parentheses, and then use the acronym throughout. This is important for a couple of reasons. So from an SEO, search engine optimization, or keyword standpoint, having both in there is helpful because you don't know what people are going to be. If someone's looking you up on link, they're using LinkedIn Recruiter, or they're putting things into the ATS, right? Looking for specific keywords. We don't know if they're going to be spelling the whole thing out or if they're going to be using that acronym. So by including both, not only are you giving yourself a better chance at visibility, what you're also doing is making sure that people understand what you're talking about. So recruiters are not always specialists in your industry or in your role, and so writing things out is a way to is make sure that they can fully understand what you're talking about. Because an SOP, which is a standard operating procedure, might be so normal and obvious to you, but for the person reading it, they might have no idea what they're talking about. And then they're not going to fully understand that skill set that you have in writing them and creating them. So again, make sure that you're spelling things out completely and then following up with the acronym. And then you can continue to use only the acronym throughout the rest of a resume. So ensure consistency, capitalize in the same places, use uniform punctuation. All of these little details matter, particularly if you are in a role that requires attention to detail. There is nothing well, as I almost said, there's nothing worse, but there are lots of things worse. But one of my resume pet peeves is seeing someone who talks about their relentless attention to detail, but they have little inconsistencies. They have things that are not uniform. They have typos on their resume, but they're touting their relentless attention to detail. Those things don't go well together. So there isn't always a right or wrong. And which dash you want to use. Do you want to use bullet points or things like that, or do you want to use like the little line instead of the circle bullet? Doesn't matter, but make sure that you're using all of the same in the same places or for the same reason. The font. Use something clear, easily legible, definitely no smaller than 10-point font. That can always be blown up. And again, if you're having trouble getting things onto one page, you can go down to 10. I generally like 11, but that's a preference point. Some of the fonts that I really like are Arial, Lotto, and Railway. Again, really corporate, professional, but also friendly, which I feel like sometimes describes me. Professional, but kind of friendly. Um, This seems silly, but is so helpful. Read your resume out loud, right? Like we often spend so much time in the editing phase. We're analyzing it, we're over analyzing it. So then when we're looking over it, we're reading it on the screen or on the paper, our brains will read what we think we wrote because we've been thinking about it for so long, rather than what actually made it onto the page. So doing this step, stopping and reading things, which also makes you slow down, it will help you catch any errors in content as well as spelling and making sure that it makes sense and that it sounds good to the reader. This is something that I think we've all come across given the industry, but how many times have people made the mistake of writing a pubic library instead of a public library? And Annie looked like you had something to say about that.
I would hope no librarian would make that error. I mean, it's easy to make, and you do see that, but not in your resume or cover letter, please.
And mistakes happen, and that is exactly why you read it out loud, line by line, word by word, or the next point is have someone else read through it, right? Because they might catch your pubic library error, whereas you might not. And then you are my 10th grade English teacher on a field trip, having to explain what to a big group of 10th graders why their itinerary says pubic library. That did really happen to me, by the way, Mr. Larson, Champlin Park High School. Um, ask a friend, family member, colleague, anyone to review your resume. However, when you do that, be really specific about the feedback you'd like to receive from them. Whether you're just asking for them to check for readability, or you want them to be looking for typos, or to give you content suggestions, you're going to get better results and better feedback if you tell them specifically what you would like and what help you could use. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns, jokes about those things? No, no pubic library jokes. Excellent. Um, Stephanie, let's keep it moving. Okay. So today we will be reviewing a resume format that I created when I previously was working in a consulting firm. We're going to get to that in a minute, but I wanted to give some background and some context on that. Um, in this consulting firm, we were required to send a resume to submit qualifications for review and then often interview. And so the the format and the content of the resume was really important to the success of the business and highlighting that in a way that again got them to continue to read more and to showcase that we were qualified and that they should hire us. So that is some context on this resume format that I created. Since then, I've used this format myself. I've shared it with a lot of friends, family members who have used it to not only land more interviews, but jobs. So we're going to talk through the thinking behind this, but feel free to use it as a template or to adjust to your preference. We are going to, again, walk through it, but then after today, you will also get it as a template. And so, Stephanie, do you want to pull up your resume and I can talk through it while you have it on the screen? Okay. Also, just like round of applause again for Stephanie Slaughter for being such a good sport and being my example in so many of these sessions. So, first things first is the key contact information. You may or may not notice here that we have Stephanie's contact, her name and her contact information, but we put it in the header because we want to make the most of your space. Again, every single line on a resume is prime real estate. You might also notice that it says Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. It doesn't say her specific city, and it's also not giving her address. So that is something that people used to do is give their address. I think for privacy reasons, it's not necessary. Beyond that, drilling down to a specific city is fine if you want, but I like to use Minneapolis, St. Paul because I don't want anyone else to make assumptions on a distance that I'm willing to drive to work. Not everyone does this, but I've seen multiple hiring managers and recruiters in the past say, well, they live what may be a 30 or 40-minute drive away. And for someone that might be completely out of the question, but for someone that might be very normal, and they like driving and they listen to podcasts and that's their quiet wind down time. But I think the Minneapolis St. Paul area is going to show, if you are in that area, is going to show that you're in the Twin Cities, but they don't need to know exactly where your location is. Um, what is the best way to get a hold of you, right? So include your telephone number if you want someone to call you. Often you do, right, for a phone interview. So putting it on there is helpful if you're willing and okay for it to be on your resume, as well as your email address. Here you're going to see that Stephanie has her Metronet email address on here, but I would recommend making sure that it is your personal email address that is on your resume if you want people contacting you about roles that are not at your current job. Because like we talked about last week, nothing is worse than getting contacted for roles at your new job, at your current job for a new job. It can create some awkward situations, as well as with IT policies. You don't know who may or may not be looking in your email. So that should be a personal email rather than a professional one. Okay, this is also a great place, like we talked about last week, to include that customized LinkedIn URL that you created. Okay, so now this first section where it says programming librarian with experience in public services, training, development, and facilitation, leadership, and managing budgets. I had over 10 years of progressive responsible leadership in a customer service role before transitioning to libraries. Experienced in urban and suburban public libraries, as well as library consortia with a focus on communication and collaboration between departments and organizations. Sounds pretty good, right? Yes. So the objective that used to be some resume templates and older ones ask for an objective here. Nope, the objective is out because if Stephanie's objective is to get a job in a library, that doesn't tell me anything. If you're applying for a job to a librarian job, I know that you're trying to get a library job. And so listing that objective on your resume is not helpful and again is a waste of that prime real estate. And so replacing that professional or that objective with a professional summary or a candidate summary is a lot more effective. So this is one of those places where you can utilize the activity we did in session one, cataloging yourself to be able to express your personality, your experience, your skills, that combination of what makes you unique, your personal characteristics, what you value, what you prioritize. So Stephanie did some of that here in this professional summary section. Below that, you'll see that we have skills and expertise. This section is for keywords. It's for you to clearly state your skills, which again is one of those categories of the activity that we did in session one, and that we discussed a couple minutes ago to review. And so think of this section as bait, right? So again, if a recruiter, if a hiring manager is spending 6 to 10 seconds on your resume, this section here is going to get them to read more, right? If these skills and expertise that you're highlighting are what they're looking for, which you can get from a job ad or from what they tell you. So it's going to entice the reader to keep reading. So this section also can be customized, easily customized to the role that you're applying to. So customizing an entire resume is not super realistic. It's super time consuming, but this is a section that you can customize with the skill sets that are most important to the role that you're applying to, either adding them or reordering them. So I think the first 2 to 3 bullets at the top should be your biggest strengths, what you want to be known for, or what are most important to the role that you're applying to. Does that make sense? Okay. So just for example here, if collection development and maintenance, community engagement, community outreach, hiring, large scale event planning, if those are Stephanie's biggest strengths or those are the most important things to the job that she's applying to, I would have those there. If that doesn't align, I would switch up the order of these. Okay, so now we're going to go down to the professional experience section. Okay, so here, of course, basics always include the company, your accurate title, matching the accurate title that you have on your LinkedIn, matching the months and the years of employment. You don't need to add a day, but I do recommend adding months and years unless you were there for a lot of years, like 5+ years, and so the months are less important. But that gives an idea because some people will just put years, so like 2020 to 2021. Okay, well, were you there for 2 months or were you there for a year and a half? That could mean a lot of different things. So I recommend the month and the year of employment. And then in this section, this is where you're going to describe how you use the skills and your keywords listed in the section above. I think it's really important, again, for brevity, for clarity. Everything should be listed in the appropriate simple tense with active voice for that clarity, for that brevity. So if you're in that role currently, use present tense. If you are not in that role anymore, use past. And so you can see that Stephanie did that under Metronet. It says serve, collaborate, promote, create, promote. She's using the appropriate present simple tense in an active voice. But when we look at her Washington County position, she has engaged, provided, created, collaborated. So everything is, again, active voice, but past tense. Um, Another thing that you will see here, if you want to scroll down a little bit, Stephanie, to um, keep going, keep going. Here, at the Hawaii State Public Library System, here you can see that Stephanie has multiple positions. She was promoted, which is a great thing to illustrate on your resume. People want to see that you continued to move up and do well to the point that you were promoted in position. So here you can see that she started as an intern, and then in parentheses, she has the dates, and then she moved into a youth services librarian position, and then she moved into a young adult librarian position. But you'll see that all of that is listed under the Hawaii State Public Library System with the full dates of employment on the left. I recommend the most relevant and challenging tasks associated with any role to be listed first. Again, when people have short attention spans, they're only, spending a couple seconds on your resume to make sure that you have what they're looking for and want to keep reading. Putting those things at the top, again, are enticing to get them to keep reading. I also tell people that it is so important to sequence and order your responsibilities in a logical order. Again, that makes it easier to read and gets me to keep reading when it makes sense rather than completely jumping around. Does that make sense? Yes, no, maybe so. I see some head shakes. Okay. And then, great. Thanks, Kristen.
Questions about um what or oh, I had a question. Um
Okay.
where do I like order that? Did everyone froze for me?
Yeah, you're freezing a little bit for us
Okay.
too, Kai. So can you
Can you
repeat the
hear me?
question, please?
Okay. Yeah, so like I guess what's the balance between like relevant things versus like impressive things? So like if there's like an impressive thing that you like don't do a lot versus like things that you do every day.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think it also depends on the role that you're applying for. So if there are things that you do in that role that are exactly matching up with what they're asking for in the job ad, which we'll look at a job ad later today, then I would put that at the top again to jump out, even if it's not something that you do every single day, but you have done it and you know that they're looking for it. So I would say most relevant and most challenging or impressive tasks first, and then after that go into a logical ordering of things that naturally flow into the next.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so for example, if I had, we'll keep it really simple, um, recruiting, hiring, and onboarding, all of those things I would put it in that order, right, on my resume. I would have recruiting and then hiring and then onboarding. I wouldn't start with onboarding and then move into hiring and then onboarding because that sequence doesn't make sense. I want to sequence them in the way, and I want it to be read in the way that makes logical sense of like what you do first and what leads into the next thing.
And then Kelsey, I don't have it on this one, but on the template that you originally shared, there was like a key accomplishments.
Mhm.
So that could be, I have it like it's similar to where the awards section
Yeah.
is. That could be a place to do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. So here you'll see that Stephanie has an awards section. You can also list that as key accomplishments or awards. One is not right or wrong. And if you have both, list both, but really emphasize those outcomes, emphasize your accomplishments, and those things you'll want to quantify as much as possible. So rather than say like saved money. Like I saved the library money. Like, cool. How much money did you save the library and how did you do that? So I saved the library $47 million by having such a great personality that people came from near and far because they saw me on the library TikTok and they just had to meet me. Um, Obviously, that's an absolute ridiculously inaccurate example, but the point is use numbers. Use numbers, be specific. How did you accomplish, like, what was it that you accomplished and how did you do that?
I think under Stephanie's Hawaii experience, one of her accomplishments, or could be called out as a kid, was weathered a 25% materials budget cut and still saw an increase in YA circulation. That to me is a significant um, accomplishment.
Totally.
So, those are the sorts of things I think you mean. What are we, and the reassess the YA collection also increase, so her key accomplishment would be increasing circulation in spite of barriers, whatever those
Yeah,
barriers are.
that's great. And again, all of this is laid out in a way that is making the best use of the space that you have, as well as making it really easy and well defined to be able to find and to read these things. Um, so the format of your resume absolutely matters. And then if you'll scroll down to education, please, Stephanie. So here you'll want to list the academic institution, the degree, and then, like we talked about last week, you'll include the years only if it's relevant context to your professional experience. So, for example, if you don't have a lot of library experience or library adjacent experience or whatever industry experience that you're applying for, because you just graduated, you're about to graduate, or you just graduated last year, including that year of graduation makes sense. It's helping paint that picture and help the reader understand why you don't have 20 years of library experience if you just finished the degree a year ago, right? Um, but if you don't want people to make assumptions about your age or how long you've been doing things or whatever, if it's not providing context, the year I don't think matters. So you can take that off. The other thing that I want to call out is placement here of education. So you'll see that Stephanie has the placement of her education at the bottom. And I think that that is because she has quite a bit of experience, whereas at this point in her career, is her education impressive and relevant? Absolutely. But is it what is going to prepare her the most for a potential job that she's applying for? No. The experience is more important than that. So, what I'm talking about with the placement is that um, if your experience for the role that you're applying to is really limited, but you're pursuing that education, you can move that education section to the top above the experience because that's going to highlight that you're currently working towards currently working towards a degree, or recently graduated in that field, which is why, again, providing that context and why the graduation year matters. So if it's super recent and you don't have the experience that's going to back it up, you can move that education more front and center. So that's really calling that out. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. So, um, okay. If you have multiple degrees, should you list degrees for all? If, for example, there is a gap between one degree and the MLIS, for stylistic consistency. Yeah, I think you absolutely um, include both. Wait, I want to make sure I'm understanding your question. Are you asking like Would you include your MLIS completed in 2025, but not including the year for your bachelor's if that was done 10 years ago? Is that the question that you're asking me?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I think it's really up to you. You can. Um, I think either one would be fine, but adding the year for that, I think, does really provide that context that would be helpful for the reader in understanding. However, here's a caveat. If you've been working in libraries for years and years and years, and the MLIS is just cherry on top, then maybe you don't need the year, right? But if you haven't been working for years and years and years in library, or not even years and years and years, but several years, you have experience in what you're applying for, um, then it's maybe less necessary. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so we are going to switch screen shares really quick. And again, we're going to give Stephanie a round of applause for being such a good sport because I let her know today after she, yes, everyone at like virtual and real round of applause. So Stephanie put her resume into this format that we're going through today. But what she didn't know was that I was going to go through it and look for little errors and also beef it up a little bit because frankly, Stephanie's incredible and she's not tooting her own horn the way that she should. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through her Word doc really quick. I'm going to point out some of those minor errors, and then I'm going to show you what I changed them to.
This is why it's important to have a second set of eyes because I did this knowing that it was going to go to Kelsey and knowing that she was going to see it. And so I tried really, really, really hard to work on it. I spent like 2 hours on this. And even just now, when I was going through it, I saw missing punctuation or acronyms. So, yes, you get a second set of eyes because even if you know that other people are going to see it and you think that you got them all, you probably didn't.
Yeah. But again, Stephanie is very brave and very smart and a great team member. Okay, so which one is it? Here it is. Okay, so I'm sharing this document right now. Can everyone see it? Okay, so again, I read Stephanie's um, her professional summary to you earlier. And it's good. It's not great, but it's good. And I know that because I know Stephanie and I believe in Stephanie. And so in a minute, when I show you the other version, I'm going to show you how I changed it a little bit. When I look at this section, what I see here is that there are some things that could maybe be combined. So, for example, community engagement and community outreach. Again, because every single line on a resume is valuable real estate, we could combine community engagement and outreach to make one line, right? Um, Things like here I see management. What does that mean? What are we managing? So being more specific here, I think, is important. Another thing that I think is really important to highlight, Stephanie has a lot of experience as well as a passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so this is one of those things that I would move to either the top bullet points here or here. So that's one of the first things that people see and they know about her. So they're associating that with her skill set and her expertise because that is something that again she really cares about and has spent a lot of time developing. Going down here, um, a really simple stylistic thing. I always like these to be at the very end visually of the line, but this is not important, less important. But again, visually, it's clean, clear, white space. Um, okay, we're going to go down a little bit further, uh, and we're not going to go through all of the little things, but just pointing out a couple things. So here, this isn't wrong, but Stephanie has June 2019 to December 2019. Because it both happened in 2019, we don't need the year two times. So again, taking away any potential distraction, anything unnecessary, and it's just reads June to December 2019 because it all happened in the same year. Does that make sense? Okay. Down here, little things that I notice. So here you'll see that the size of Stephanie's dashes are different sizes than the one that shows up here. Again, such a little small nitpicky thing, but if someone says that they have a relentless attention to detail, it should all match. So we're just going to fix that really quick. Um, and now they match. Um, and then what am I noticing here? Can anyone call it out? Okay. So Stephanie here is missing parentheses around the dates, which feels like a small, again, nitpicky error. But here, when I'm reading it, it's a lot easier to understand because it has punctuation. And I'm just going to remove this. Why are you doing this? Okay. So even just those parentheses are helping separate from general manager, and now I can read her title better and understand, boom, she moved up rather than seeing a string of like words and numbers and I don't know what's happening there. Super classic that so many people do. Lead doesn't have an A, right? Okay. So those were just a couple, again, really nitpicky small things. But in a minute, I'm going to show you guys the difference of what I did with her professional summary. So I'm just going to read this one first, her original, and then I'm going to pull up the one that I changed it to. So, programming librarian with experience in public services, training, development, and facilitation, leadership, and managing budgets. I had over 10 years of progressively responsible leadership in a customer service role before transitioning to libraries. Experienced in urban and suburban public libraries, as well as library consortia with a focus on communication and collaboration between departments and organizations. Pretty good, right? Yeah. And now we are going to make some little tiny tweaks so that Stephanie is being fully recognized for, oh, did I share the wrong one? Yeah, I did. Excuse me. I have I have two of Stephanie's resumes pulled up on my screen right now. Okay. Resume Q4 2025. Okay, so let's compare. Dynamic, imaginative programming librarian and DEI advocate specializing in public services, training, development, and facilitation, leadership, as well as project and budget management, enhanced by 10 plus years of progressively responsible leadership experience in customer service and retail management roles. Experienced in urban and suburban public libraries, in addition to library consortia, with a focus on the value of effective communication, connection, and collaboration between departments and organizations to create lasting, meaningful impact on the communities we serve. Very small tweaks. I'm saying mostly the same things, taking things from her skills and expertise that she says herself and adding it to this professional summary to make it stronger and really highlight why Stephanie is really incredible. And again, that unique mix of things that make her special. And so these are all taken from her skills and experience, her personal characteristics, her values and priorities, as well as and those are the four columns that we did in our first activity. Any feedback on this? Does it sound any better than the first one? And if you're evaluating a candidate, which would you want to interview more?
Well, I certainly think the second one is a great improvement. And I think it's interesting the way you've added the adjectives, because I think a lot of people are hesitant to use adjectives like dynamic and imaginative, even though they're true, to describe themselves. And so that's where I think having other people look at your resume, talk to you about your resume, and review some of your experiences to help you boost your personal description here.
Yeah, because it makes a difference. It helps that profile, that person come to life in my mind. And again, this is a place where you can describe yourself and what makes you uniquely you, as well as put in some of those things that you know that an employer or a position is looking for. So I use the words like dynamic and imaginative because I know that those are things that we were looking for in the programming library role. Someone who was creative, someone who thinks outside the box. And so when I read those words, I see that it's matching up with what I'm looking for. And those things are true about Stephanie. Another thing, too, that Stephanie doesn't call out in her profile that, again, I know is so important to who she is and what she's done, but it's her DEI work. And it was completely missing from the professional summary. And then you'll see I made some of those changes here where I added community outreach and engagement. I moved diversity, equity, and inclusion to the top. I put hiring and staff management in one bullet point. So again, we're making these things make sense. We're featuring her skill sets. We're featuring the things that are most important to a role, as well as creating additional space on the resume. Because rather than these be two different bullet points, I'm putting them in one, which helps them make more sense, as well as giving her more space to toot her own horn other places on the resume. Make sense? Okay.
I think though that if you go back to that, I think
Oh,
depending on what the job is that you're applying for, you really want to think about that skills section, because skills and expertise, because quite honestly, collection develop for the position that we were hiring for, programming librarian, collection development and maintenance is so far outside of anything that Metronet ever does. We don't have a collection, we don't have any anything to do with collection development or management. What we were looking for is that imaginative person who can develop, moving program development and creative program development and presentation, training and development, community outreach and engagement, remembering that our community is librarians. We don't serve the public, we only serve librarians. So collection development and maintenance could be way down at the bottom of the second column with no loss. But the other things, the large scale event planning, we do a lot of that. We do value diversity, equity, inclusion. And in this role, hiring and staff management really falls to me, but project management is an important skill that could be higher on the list. So I think this is where you can take a look at the job ad and the job responsibilities and highlight your skills and expertise, both in your personal description, but especially, I mean, I read collection development and maintenance, and I think, yeah, great, that's a librarian skill. I don't need that. I'm never going to need it at Metronet.
never say
So,
never, Dan.
oh no, I know.
Okay.
um, so I think those things are really important. Highlight what the job is asking for and where your skills match.
And this is a really easy place to just rearrange or add the
Right.
keywords. Really easy place to customize your resume for a specific job that's not going to take up a lot of time. And so, again, having the right keywords, having the right skill sets that are accurate representations of what yours are in this section called out in an easy to read format is going to get a recruiter to continue to learn about, okay, how did you use those skills? What did you do? Um, this is your bait. Use it wisely. Melissa?
Yeah, would you even delete collection development and maintenance for this particular position, or is it good to keep it in?
I would keep it in here because it is something that Stephanie has done a lot of. She has that skill set. And so, since she's going to talk about it later on in the resume, having a keyword for it here doesn't hurt her, but it doesn't need to be featured front and center.
Okay.
And from my viewpoint as the evaluator, I would leave it in because it is a library skill. And we did want to hire somebody with an MLIS and library experience. And which isn't to say that we wouldn't do some kind of collection development program. So that would be valuable.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully just those examples were helpful. I talked through the different sections and why we're doing them, but even looking at them like this and showing some customizable examples of, again, our good sports Stephanie's resume. Thank you, Stephanie, was helpful, and we're gonna continue to move on. So, Stephanie, if you could please pull up the slideshow again. It's gonna go. We're gonna get it. There we go. Okay. So, again, anyone feeling stuck when they think about all of that? Here are a couple ways to potentially get unstuck. So, look at posted roles. Look at things that interest you. What specific skill sets are they looking for? Have you performed any of the responsibilities listed? If so, add those to your resume. I think that is one of the easiest and best ways to get content for your resume is to look at the things that you're interested in, look at the things that you've done, what are they advertising, and add it to yours. Here's another thing is that it's so important to keep your resume updated. You never know when you're going to need it. And I'm for sure guilty of this. I'm not sure if anyone else is, but I don't have a resume ready and someone asks me for it, or I see a job that I'm interested in, even though I wasn't planning to look for a job. I'm like, oh shoot, I have to update my resume. And then I don't want to update my resume and I don't remember what to put on there. And so then I just don't apply for that job because I don't have a resume ready and fresh, right? So when you accept a new role, a job description or a job ad very likely was involved in that process for that new role that you just accepted. Use the content on that job description, that job ad that you just took to update your resume immediately. There's that old saying, it's a lot easier to stay ready than get ready, and this makes it easier to help you stay ready. We talked about in the first session having a brag board. So, somewhere where you are keeping track of all of your accomplishments, compliments that you get, anything like that. And so, consult that brag board that you have ongoing to update your resume, update that key accomplishments, update that awards section. If you've had a performance review, what was the feedback that you just got from your manager? You can use that for material for your resume. So, all of those things that you've been tracking, all of the things that you've been doing great at, use them for your resume. Another experienced recruiting professional that I want to point out is Sam Strawn. I'm not sure if everyone's heard of him. Really interesting story. He changed his name from Samsung and he worked at Apple and he thought that would be a bad look. So he changed his name, which is, again, if you Google him, is a fun little story to read about. But he gives a lot of good tips and prompts, as well as a different template for resumes that I have found also to be really valuable. There are a million resume templates, a million resume tips out there, and I think that he gives really good ones. So if you're looking for more, or you're looking for something a little bit different than what you saw in this webinar today, I would go check him out, even if it's just to read his fun backstory. The other thing, given we are living in a technological age, of course, there's an AI tool coming out for everything. Um, AI, I would say, again, built by humans, and humans are flawed. And so use with caution, but there are a couple tools that are better than others. Some of those include Teal, Grammarly, of course, who's going to hopefully catch your pubic library error or your typo. You can also use Chat GPT for some wordsmithing as well. And so, again, of course, AI, use it to help, use it to supplement, but don't use it to don't let it be your only source of creation. Okay, so now we had talked about looking at a job ad. So I'm going to pull one up right now. So we can take a look at when we're looking at positions, how we would use the information that people are saying that they're looking for to enhance our resume. Okay. I'm trying to share my screen, but I almost just left the meeting instead. That wouldn't be great. Okay. Share screen. We're going to do this page. Okay. Can everyone see the City of Duluth career pages? So Stephanie and Anne and I took a look at a lot of different job ads in preparation for today's session to make sure that we found something that was actually helpful that can illustrate some of the things that we're talking about. And this is the one. So in this role for A, okay, they're looking for a librarian. Imagine that. But they're telling you exactly what they're looking for. Someone who has customer service, and someone who's welcoming and has a service mentality. Um, they're looking for an MLS. So those are something that if you have that, make sure that that is highlighted in your resume, as well as potentially your professional summary, your dedication to customer service. They're telling you the exact skills that they're looking for. So include these in that skills and expertise section. They're talking about enthusiasm for planning and providing engaging events. Again, Stephanie had that on there, but they're not just looking for event planning, they're looking for the enthusiasm. If you have that, include that word somewhere. But here they're literally outlining things that you can put in those different sections of your resume like we talked about. It's also including tasks, right? And if you've done these tasks, put them in the body of your professional experience underneath the corresponding job where you did it. And then here, going into summary and purpose, and then essential duties and responsibilities. Again, it's laying out exactly what this job will be doing. And so if you have done you've performed these responsibilities in your role, you can add them to your resume. Because this job ad is so robust, that's what makes it a really good example of things to pull from for your resume, for your professional summary, things like that. And so also in requirements, if you've done these things, add them to your resume. And again, there are a lot here. Another thing that I do want to point out that I also think is good about this job description is it's being clear about physical requirements, right? And so again, knowing yourself, if you're not someone who either wants to or cannot perform those things with or without accommodation, that they're making it clear that that's part of the job. And so that goes back to knowing yourself. Is that something you want to do? Is it something that you can do, again, with or without accommodation? Something to think about. Okay. Another thing here. So ability to transport oneself throughout the library and to and from branch libraries. So reliable transportation, they're not specifying how you need to get there, but the ability to get to and from different branches is important. Any additional feedback, questions, comments, concerns, jokes, anything that you're noticing on this ad and how that could be leveraged for your application, your resume?
I think one of the things where it says other duties as assigned, every job says that. But I think pointing out in your skills and expertise or somewhere is your willingness to be flexible to take on responsibilities or new tasks or whatever. And, you can play with the wording on that, but flexibility, we know in any library position, probably in any position, but certainly in any library position, flexibility is going to be key because of the changing environment, short staffs, changing hours, all that. But expressly talking about your flexibility in a work environment, I think, is important.
Yeah, flexible, adaptable, embraces change. Three things I love to see on a
Right.
resume. Okay, great. Well, in the sake of time, we're gonna keep it moving. Steph, can you please pull up the presentation again? We're going, and here we are. As I said before, I have a love-hate relationship with these dang cover letters. As I killed them in our game earlier, right? And so what I don't like about cover letters is them being a lot of times a waste of time. Because what the classic cover letter templates say is to essentially summarize your qualifications in paragraph form. And I don't need you to do that because if your resume is set up correctly, I can do it quicker and more efficiently with your resume than I can reading your paragraphs. Not only that, reading that isn't going to tell me as the hiring person how you are going to solve my specific problems I'm having that is creating to the creation of this role. So, cover letters should not summarize your resume in paragraph form, but rather it should outline as clearly and concisely as possible why you are a great fit for the specific role you're applying to in several paragraphs maximum. This is another place too why I hate cover letters is because I've received so many cover letters that are addressing it to the wrong name or who are looking to get the, library director role at XYZ library and I work at ABC library and we're not hiring a director, it's a manager role. And so it's very clearly someone took this template, they didn't review it, which again shows me lack of attention to detail and it doesn't tell me why you want the specific job that I'm hiring for because you're not even talking about the right job that I'm hiring for, which is another reason, again, these template cover letters that are incorrect and a waste of time. So if you're going to send a cover letter, customize it, make it specific to the role you're applying to, or don't send one at all. Use the cover letter when I love cover letters. There are times I do love cover letters, and that is when someone uses that space to provide additional context or explanation that I might not immediately see or dots I don't connect on my own on your resume. One example of this is making a career transition, right? And so we've had in previous sessions someone who is currently pursuing and about to finish their library degree, but it's been working as a software engineer, right? A cover letter would be a great place for him to explain that transition and to also talk about the skills that are transferable and exactly how he's going to use them in the role that's listed. And again, making connections and providing explanation that I can't see only from looking at his resume. And that is a time when I love cover letters. I see that we have a question in the chat. Okay, great. Yeah, great question, Kai. What is the best way to address a cover letter? I rarely see an actual name on job postings. Yeah, true. So the last thing that it says on this page, address them. It's totally fine to say, "Dear hiring team," right? That could be multiple people. It could be one person. But you can absolutely skip the "Dear Sir" or "Dear Sir" or "Madam" or the "To whom it may concern." It's formal. It's stuffy. And again, sounds really templated and old school. So you can just say, "Dear hiring team," covers everyone. It is diverse. It's equitable, covers everyone adequately. Um, Another thing that you can use a cover letter for, in a place that I do really like it, is when you're explaining a gap on your resume. Not saying that you have to do this, as it's a lot more common now to have different gaps, whether it's to care for a family member or to take a year traveling, whatever it might be. A cover letter is also a really great place to explain that gap on your resume if you feel like you need to, as well as again, emphasize that you still have the skill sets, regardless of where they come from, to do the job that you're applying for. Okay. Anything else about cover letters? Yes, no. Okay. Applicant tracking systems. I also think this is something that we need to address. So the infamous ATS. So just to make sure that we are, again, spelling out the full acronym, ATS is an applicant tracking system. And so that we're all on the same page, what an ATS is. It's a software application used by companies to manage their hiring and their recruitment process. Really, it helps facilitate that. So it helps with tasks like posting job openings, parsing resumes to extract candidate information, tracking candidates through the process, storing profiles and interview notes, especially if they're going to be multiple people along the way, as well as organizing applicants in a central database. So that's what it is, and again, can be a really helpful tool. The ATS gets a bad rap with a lot of job seekers. They think that the ATS, that the software is automatically rejecting them. And I want to clear up that myth that it is not true. An applicant tracking system can help filter resumes by keywords. And again, which is helping us drive the point home that those keywords, those skills that you have, really important that they're matching up with what the job says it's looking for. The applicant tracking system can help filter using those things, as well as other criteria that's set up by the hiring team, but they do not auto reject candidates. A human has to do that. Again, that doesn't guarantee just because a human did it that they fully looked at your resume and gave it the consideration that it should. But again, that's creating the case for making sure that it is optimized, that your resume is optimized to get them to keep reading, so that you're not giving them a reason to not look at it and then reject it. But it is humans who are sending out the thanks but no thanks, rather than the robot behind the scenes. Another question that I hear a lot of times is asking about document format for the ATS. So, despite some outdated or misinformation, many applicant tracking systems can read both a Word document or a PDF. I do, however, recommend double checking the application instructions to see if they specify a preferred document format. Sometimes they will do that, but not always. So, hopefully that helps clear up some of the beef with applicant tracking systems. They actually are a very helpful tool that help recruiters do their job more efficiently and are able to process more applications. And they can absolutely be used to help you, but they're not out to get you.
Okay, we are running a little bit low on time. So this is a question from Metronet. And you can think about this, you can email us, you can think about it and respond next session. But if we were to do a job club of sorts and you are in the Twin Cities metro area, would it be useful? And more importantly, would you attend an in-person peer review session for resumes and cover letters? Or just help coming up with your list of unique traits. And I want to be clear that this would not be job coaching. It would be more of a peer review, and the location would likely be public libraries across the metro because that's an accessible space. But again, we are running short on time. So think about it and let us know either by email or next session.
Is there anyone right off the bat that's like, yes, I would be interested in that. I want someone to review my resume and help me with my candidate summary with their set of librarian eyes? Okay, Jeanette says probably, especially if it's at a library. Wonderful. Okay, cool. Um, okay, so that we're running right up against the end of our session, but would really, as always, love to hear from the group. How did today's session change how you think about your resume and cover letter? And has anyone used any AI tools to help with their resume or cover letter? As always, questions, comments, concerns, jokes, success stories. I want to hear it all. Feel free to go off mute or to put something in the chat. Jeanette says, I really love the tip about going to job postings to pull language for the resume. Yes, it's helpful. Um, it's efficient. It's tried and true. I think another thing, even though I put this together, but Anne was the one, it was Anne's idea, use adjectives in your resume. They add color, they add vibrance, they add description, and they help paint you as a again a real person and not just a resume. Okay, group of talkers. Okay, Kayla says, my resume feels like it has been starved of information that I could have been adding. I use AI for keyword ideas. Great. Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Kristen. Yes, I really appreciated seeing how you enhance the professional summary. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, Stephanie is um, really smart and capable, and as I've said 47 times already, she's a great sport. So thank you, Stephanie, for continuing to let us use you as an example because I'm really hoping that that will be relevant and people can take some very specific things that away from your examples that they can maybe use on their resume. All right, and then with that, we will wrap up. Stephanie, if you'll go to the very last slide. So as always, if there's anything that you wish you would have asked, that you wish you would have shared, you have feedback for future sessions, things that you want to learn coming up, send any of those burning questions, any feedback, any suggestions to hr@metronet.lib.mn.us. It's in the chat as well, but again, want to make sure that this programming is educational, helpful, and ideally, if we can make it even kind of fun, that's always a goal of mine. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Erin. Thanks, Melissa. Thank you, thank you, thank you all.